All right, so let's wrap up Act 4 here briefly. Act 4 also deals with the tragic meltdown of Ophelia. We know that she has been pretty much emotionally abused and heavily reprimanded by her father, her brother. We didn't talk much in Act 3 about how Hamlet treats her, but he's pretty abusive towards her, at one point telling her to go to a nunnery or to go become a nun. And so there's just a lot of misogyny and abuse dished out to Ophelia throughout the play. And we kind of understand that this has had a harsh effect on her, and it all comes to a head when her father dies, and her boyfriend killed him, right? So really messed her up. What I asked in the bell work for today is, what other reasons was she upset besides the death of her father? And we need only look towards the scene 5, line 45 or 47 here. She starts to sing these songs which are about, culture, ancient customs and whatnot. And some of the words here kind of blow up Hamlet's cover with what he has done with her and how he's acted towards her. When she sings, she might be talking about Hamlet when she sings, then up he rose and donned his clothes and ducked the chamber door, let in the maid that out a maid never departed more. And we see in the footnote that he'd opened up his door to her and she'd come in pure or maidenly, and then she left not a maid anymore. So we see what she is singing about there, and it may be what happened to her with Hamlet. We also see in lines 61 through 66 a similar theme. Young men will do it if they come to it, by cock they are to blame. Quoth she, before he tumbled me, you promised me to wed. He answers, so I a done by yonder sun, and thou hadst not come to my bed. So here we see the paradox, the impossible situation for a young maiden. Before he seduced her, she promised that she'd marry him if he could seduce her. But then after he'd seduced her, he refused to marry her because she let him seduce her. So it's kind of a paradox there, a no-win situation for a young maiden in this culture. So that really drove her mad too, her dad's death and then Hamlet's having taken advantage of her, which incidentally is what her brother and father had warned her about. What else? So yeah, the tragedy of Ophelia is she ends up drowning. She can't take it. She mentally breaks down and drowns in the river. It's most likely at her own hands, right? So the final theme we'll talk about here is the plan to kill Hamlet. Of course, the original one we found Claudius made was to send him to England and have him killed there. Well, as we learn in scene 6, line 13, in a letter to Horatio, Hamlet tells his best friend that he'd been attacked by pirates, and he boarded the ship with the pirates, was taken prisoner, and they treated him kindly. Okay, line 21, he says, they have dealt with me like thieves of mercy, but they know what they did. I am to do a good turn for them. Let the king have the letters I sent. Okay. Meanwhile, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern it's suggested that Hamlet has pulled a fast one on them, has tricked them. They're still en route to England. We'll find out what happens to them Act 5. Okay, so Hamlet survived the first attempt to kill him by getting saved by these pirates. The next, at the end of Act 4 and Scene 7, the next plot is kind of suspicious. It's Laertes, who's a famed sword fighter, decides that he'll challenge Hamlet to a sword fight, and he'll kind of cheat, and he'll put some poison on the tip of his sword, so even a slight gash or laceration would poison Hamlet and kill him. And the king isn't very confident in that. He says he'll also have a cup of wine with poison in it, and when they get tired, they'll take a break and have a drink, and the poison wine will kill Hamlet if the sword poison hasn't done so yet. So, again, kind of a weak, kind of a doubtful plan. One man doubts the other's way to kill Hamlet. They seem kind of like they're wishy-washy about it. And again, these are the guys who, unlike Hamlet, are supposed to be active, brave, vengeful men. And we're wondering now, as we realize how dull Hamlet's revenge act has become, we're wondering if these guys really believe in the virtues of revenge themselves. So we'll stop there. Again, thanks for listening. And again, look for some extra credit with the literary criticism by Rene Girard coming up. And there'll be one more activity with Act 4 posted tomorrow as well. Okay. In the meantime, if you're on Act 5, happy reading. Again, enjoy Hamlet to the best of your ability. Use the supplemental stuff if you need it. And we'll talk to you real soon. Have a good evening.